You're not broken. There's a reason why you're the way you are. And once you understand it, your entire life will make sense. There are fixations that only appear in people who are spiritually attuned. These are the ones higher forces allow because they redirect you, sharpen you, and pull you towards something your conscious mind isn't ready to understand. And I'll be honest, I've caught these patterns in myself more than once. I think most of us who feel things deeply have been there. That strange pull, that repeating pattern, we've all felt it in our own way. You're not failing, you're not weak, you're responding to a spiritual pressure that most people will never experience. And yes, some of those may be really uncomfortable or bad for you overall, but they serve a purpose, at least for a certain period of time. But pay attention, because there's one specific addiction that shows up in spiritually tuned people more than anything else, and almost no one realizes what it actually is. Your obsession with silence isn't a flaw. It's preparation for something sacred. There's a quiet addiction almost no one talks about, the addiction to isolation. Not the kind rooted in sadness, but the kind that feels strangely comforting, even necessary. Spiritually attuned people don't withdraw because they're broken. They withdraw because their soul starts craving purity of space, a place where noise, expectations, and other people's energy can't interfere with what's growing inside them. This isn't loneliness, it's spiritual incubation. The solitude feels addictive because it becomes a cosmic greenhouse, a protected environment where your inner gifts can bloom without interference. You begin to prefer silence, stillness, and distance, not because you're avoiding life, but because something within you is being rebuilt, rewritten, and realigned. You think you're hiding from the world, but in reality, the world is being cleared away so that the next phase of you can finally rise. Some people chase comfort. Spiritually attuned people chase truth. There's a point in every spiritually aligned person's life where they realize they can't tolerate anything fake anymore. Not fake connections, not shallow conversations, not people who say one thing and live another. They don't decide this consciously, it happens naturally, almost like truth starts pulling them forward and everything else becomes unbearable. This is a very real addiction, and it shows up stronger the more spiritually attuned someone becomes. You start craving clarity the way others crave distraction. You become drawn to honesty even when it's uncomfortable, and you'd rather sit with a painful truth than soothe yourself with a comforting lie. It's not because you're harsh or intense, it's because your spirit refuses to participate in illusion anymore. Higher forces allow this because truth is the only thing that can guide you where you're meant to go. Illusions slow you down. Surface-level conversations disconnect you from yourself. Lies create fog in a mind that was born to see with precision. That's why spiritually aligned people become obsessed with understanding people's real intentions, reading energy beneath their words, and cutting through the noise of the world. Once your spirit tastes truth, deception becomes impossible to digest. But this shift leads to something even stranger and far more powerful, a trait that almost no one notices until it becomes impossible to ignore. Your persistence isn't personality, it's destiny. One of the strongest addictions higher forces allow in spiritually attuned people is the addiction to persistence. No matter how many setbacks you face, no matter how many times you fall apart, something in you refuses to stay down. Most people quit when things get difficult. Spiritually aligned souls don't. They get quieter, they get more internal, but they don't stop. This isn't the kind of grit you learn from motivational speeches. It's woven into your spiritual makeup. It's the sense that your life is pulling you somewhere specific, and you can't afford to walk away from it. That's why even when you're exhausted, overwhelmed, confused, or disappointed, you still keep moving. You keep trying again. You keep rebuilding. Something inside you whispers, "Not yet. There's more for you." This addiction to never giving up isn't random, it's guided. It comes from a deep, spiritual memory that you were born with a purpose, and your soul refuses to abandon it. People might call it stubbornness or perfectionism, but it's not that. It's the inner knowing that every challenge is shaping you, training you, preparing you for something larger than what you see right now. Your refusal to quit is the proof that your path isn't ordinary. This is why spiritually attuned individuals can withstand storms that would break anyone else. They're built for endurance. They're built for meaning. And the very thing that exhausts them is also the thing that elevates them, because persistence is the doorway to every gift their soul is trying to unlock next. Your awakening didn't just change you, it rewired what your soul reaches for. There's a moment in every spiritually attuned person's journey where life splits into two timelines: the person you were before your awakening and the person who emerged after it. And what's fascinating is that many of the strange addictions you're dealing with now didn't even exist in your old life. They only started showing up after something inside you cracked open. It's almost as if your awakening activated a new set of spiritual instincts, instincts that pull you towards certain behaviors, patterns, or compulsions that your old self never would have understood. Before your awakening, you might have been more balanced, more predictable, more in control. But awakenings aren't gentle. They dismantle old layers, old beliefs, old identities, and in the middle of that dismantling, new habits begin to form, habits that feel strangely magnetic. You start gravitating toward things with an intensity that almost feels foreign, like something is guiding you into new territory whether you consciously want it or not. And here's the interesting part. These addictions don't appear randomly. They appear strategically. Higher forces often allow these impulses to arise because they help stabilize you during the chaotic reconstruction of your inner world. This is why spiritually awakened individuals often say, "I don't even recognize myself anymore." It's because the things you're drawn to, the things you obsess over, the things you can't let go of, they're all aligned with your new frequency, not your old life. These addictions are like spiritual placeholders, shaping your trajectory without you realizing it. They carve new pathways, awaken dormant strengths, and give your spirit something to hold on to as it rises. Awakening doesn't just change what you see, it changes what you seek. And once this shift happens, there's no going back. The old addictions fall away. The superficial cravings lose their power. But the strange, intense, purpose-driven compulsions that show up afterward, those stay. They evolve with you, they grow with you, and they continue to shape you into the person you were meant to become long before you ever awakened at all. Your compassion is not weakness, it's spiritual instinct. Another addiction that only appears in spiritually attuned people is the urge to help others even when the help is never returned. You've probably noticed this pattern throughout your life. You give more than you receive, you show up for people who wouldn't cross the street for you, and you pour into individuals who, in any logical world, didn't earn that level of devotion. And yet, you keep doing it. Something in you feels pulled toward people who are hurting, lost, or broken, even if part of you knows they may never pour back into you. This isn't because you lack boundaries or self-respect. It's because your spirit sees something that the physical eye doesn't. You're drawn to people not because of who they are on the surface, but because of what their soul is silently battling. Spiritually attuned individuals have a heightened sensitivity to unspoken wounds. You feel the heaviness in someone's aura before they ever open their mouth. You sense the loneliness behind their smile. You recognize the childlike vulnerability behind their anger. And so you help, not because you're naive, but because you're wired for compassion. Higher forces allow this addiction because it's part of your spiritual responsibility. Some souls are placed on earth to break cycles, elevate energy, and bring healing where others cannot. And here's the truth most people never understand. Spiritually attuned individuals don't help because they expect reciprocity. They help because their heart refuses to abandon people the way the world does. There is an inner knowing that every act of compassion strengthens your spiritual currency, that every moment of kindness sharpens your intuition, that every time you lift someone up, a future version of you becomes lighter. Chosen ones don't help to be appreciated. They help because their soul doesn't know how to do anything else. This tendency gets misunderstood, taken advantage of, and misread. But it's one of the clearest signs of a spiritually awakened individual. It's not self-sacrifice, it's soul recognition. You don't help people because of who they are. You help them because of who you are. If you keep returning to the past, it's not regression, it's recalibration. People love to label this as nostalgia, overthinking, or emotional attachment. But when spiritually attuned individuals get stuck replaying the past, something far more intricate is happening. You might notice yourself scrolling through old messages, rereading journals, revisiting memories you thought you were done with, or analyzing conversations from years ago that everyone else has forgotten. It feels like an addiction you can't explain, like some invisible thread keeps pulling you backward even when you're trying to move forward. The truth is that spiritually awakened people revisit the past because their intuition senses unfinished business. Not emotional closure, energetic closure. They aren't reliving the past, they are mapping it. Every memory holds a frequency, a pattern, a decision point, and higher forces pull spiritually sensitive individuals back to these moments because there was something encoded in them that they didn't fully catch the first time. It might be a realization, a shift in perception, an unspoken truth, or an identity piece that only makes sense now that they've evolved. This obsession with revisiting old experiences doesn't come from weakness or longing. It comes from alignment. The past becomes a mirror that reveals what your spirit has outgrown and what it still needs to reclaim. Sometimes the memory contains an emotional imprint you left behind. Sometimes it carries a version of you that you're meant to reintegrate. Sometimes it marks the exact moment your soul diverged from its highest path, and now it's trying to bring you back to the point where everything changed. Higher forces allow this addiction because spiritually attuned individuals navigate life on multiple layers at once. While everyone else sees time as linear, your spirit treats the past like a map filled with coded pathways. Your mind returns to certain moments because those moments are doors, and you weren't ready to open them before. Now you are. Returning to the past becomes a form of spiritual reorientation, stabilizing your current path by understanding where your energy shifted in the first place. Your past isn't calling you back, it's pointing you forward. This kind of obsession can feel exhausting, but it's deeply purposeful. It's not about living in old memories. It's about retrieving the parts of yourself you abandoned there. It's a recalibration process designed to align your soul with the version of you that was always meant to emerge next. Your mind doesn't spiral, it scans. Another addiction that spiritually attuned people experience is the relentless urge to analyze everything. Not in a worry-filled, anxious way, but in a deeply investigative, meaning-driven way. You think about why someone said something a certain way, why you felt a shift in a room, why a coincidence happened exactly when it did, or why a conversation sticks with you for days. Your mind is constantly zooming in, zooming out, connecting threads that no one else even notices exist. Most people see this as overthinking, but for spiritually awakened individuals, it's something much more sophisticated. It's the addiction to meaning itself. Your brain isn't just processing information, it's decoding it. Every symbol, every behavior, every pattern feels like it carries weight. You're not content with surface explanations because your spirit knows that reality is layered, intentional, and filled with signals. You analyze because your intuition is always looking for the deeper architecture behind the moment. Higher forces allow this addiction because analysis is how your spiritual vision sharpens. When you constantly break down experiences, question your reactions, and evaluate the hidden energy behind situations, you're unknowingly training yourself. You're strengthening your perception, refining your instincts, and developing a level of awareness that will become essential later on. The overthinking is actually preparation, a calibration of consciousness that will eventually let you read people, rooms, and situations with uncanny precision. Spiritually attuned individuals often don't realize that this habit is one of their greatest gifts. It makes them excellent at seeing through illusions, identifying patterns, predicting outcomes, and understanding emotional dynamics long before anything is said aloud. While others live on autopilot, you live in observation mode. This doesn't make you unstable, it makes you perceptive. Your mind searches for meaning because you were born to interpret what others overlook. This addiction, when nurtured instead of suppressed, becomes spiritual intelligence. It transforms confusion into insight, chaos into clarity, and ordinary moments into revelations. And even if it feels overwhelming at times, the truth is that this constant internal decoding is shaping you into someone who will navigate future challenges with a level of awareness most people never reach. You demand more from yourself because your soul remembers what you're capable of. One of the most misunderstood addictions spiritually attuned people carry is the addiction to self-pressure. Not the kind that comes from society, family expectations, or competition, but the kind that seems to rise from deep within, almost like an instinct. You might notice that you push yourself harder than anyone else does, even when no one is watching, even when no one is asking. You feel a constant pull to do more, become more, understand more, achieve more. And no matter how much progress you make, something inside you whispers that it still isn't enough. This inner pressure doesn't come from insecurity. It comes from memory. Spiritually awakened, people carry a subconscious awareness that they were born with a larger calling, a purpose that ordinary routines can't satisfy. So while others are content with mediocrity or comfort, you feel a strange restlessness, a sense that something bigger is waiting for you. This is why you set standards for yourself that seem impossible. You operate as if you're preparing for a moment that hasn't happened yet. And that's exactly what's happening. Higher forces allow this addiction because self-pressure builds spiritual discipline. It strengthens your endurance, sharpens your focus, and trains your mind to operate at a higher frequency than the environment around you. Every time you push through doubt, fatigue, or uncertainty, you're stretching the boundaries of the person you used to be. You're developing the resilience required for someone whose path involves leadership, healing, or transformation. While others crumble under the weight of expectation, you rise under the weight of your own. But this addiction also creates a paradox. The more you evolve, the more you expect from yourself. The more you achieve, the more you believe you should achieve. Spiritually aligned people often feel guilty for resting or taking breaks because their inner drive doesn't let them slow down. This can feel overwhelming, but it's also one of the clearest markers of someone who was built for greatness. Your self-pressure isn't punishment, it's preparation. You're not being hard on yourself because you're broken. You're being hard on yourself because your spirit senses the magnitude of what you're growing into. And that pressure, as intense as it feels, is shaping you into the version of yourself that your destiny has been waiting for. The same force that elevates you can also destroy you if it loses direction. One of the most profound spiritual truths, and one that almost no one talks about, is that every sacred behavior has a shadow. The very same compulsions higher forces allow to stabilize you, strengthen you, or guide you can also become the ones that quietly drain you if they grow unchecked. This is why spiritually attuned people often feel like they're walking a tightrope between their highest self and their most chaotic impulses. Introduce the subtle distinction. When a behavior helps regulate your energy, it becomes sacred. It grounds you, clarifies your vision, reinforces your intuition, and keeps your spirit centered. But when that same behavior begins to consume your time, scatter your focus, drain your vitality, or shrink your life, it slips into self-sabotage. And the shift is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't explode dramatically. It creeps in gradually, almost imperceptibly, until you realize the tool that once empowered you has become the very thing holding you back. This is especially true for spiritually aligned individuals because they feel everything more intensely. Their inner world is louder, their instincts are sharper, their compulsions, even the harmless ones, carry more emotional charge. So when a habit begins to shift from sacred to destructive, they feel it immediately, even if they can't articulate what's wrong. Their energy becomes heavy, their clarity fades, and they instinctively know something is misaligned. But they also know that the answer isn't to eliminate the behavior entirely. It's to recognize which version of the behavior is operating, the sacred one or the sabotaging one. Higher forces allow this delicate balance because it teaches energetic mastery. Every spiritually significant person must learn to feel the difference between nourishment and depletion, between alignment and escape, between purpose and pattern. The line is thin, but spiritually attuned, people are uniquely equipped to feel it. Their sensitivity becomes their compass, guiding them back to the version of the habit that elevates rather than diminishes them. Every gift has a threshold, cross it, and it becomes a test. Understanding this thin line is one of the final stages of spiritual maturity. It's the realization that your strength and your weakness might come from the same place, and the mastery lies in knowing when you've crossed from one side into the other. Some obsessions stay in your life because your soul needs them to survive the in-between. There is a point in every spiritual journey where logic cannot explain why certain compulsions refuse to loosen their grip. You've tried to stop, you've tried to control it, you've tried to reason with yourself, yet the behavior stays, almost as if something beyond you is keeping it alive. And this is where the spiritual permission slip theory comes in, the idea that higher forces sometimes allow certain fixations to continue far longer than expected, because they serve a function you can't yet see. Ask yourself this: what if your obsession is the soul's way of surviving the in-between? The in-between is the period after a breakthrough, but before a new chapter fully forms. It's the energetic void where your old identity has fallen apart, but your new identity hasn't anchored yet. That space is uncomfortable, unstructured, and spiritually disorienting. So higher forces permit certain compulsions to step in and act like temporary scaffolding. They hold you up when everything else around you is shifting. These obsessions aren't accidents. They aren't punishments. They're bridges. They keep your mind engaged when your spirit is processing too much. They stabilize your energy when you're transitioning between timelines. They give you something familiar to grip onto while the universe rearranges your path behind the scenes. And in that sense, your obsession becomes a silent guardian, not because the behavior itself is special, but because the timing of it is. Not every obsession is meant to be healed. Some are meant to hold you until the next version of you is ready. This is why the compulsion often fades the moment a new chapter clicks into place. It served its purpose. It carried you across the gap. And Spirit never judges how you crossed the bridge, only that you made it to the other side. So instead of seeing your obsession as a failure, consider that it might be the exact tool your soul selected to navigate a period of energetic instability. You weren't being derailed. You were being protected until the next door opened. What you call a flaw might be the very thing keeping your spirit aligned. When you look at the patterns you've developed, the cravings for solitude, the fixation on truth, the pressure you place on yourself, the looping thoughts, the urge to make sense of everything, it's easy to assume something is wrong with you. But spiritually attuned people move through life differently. Their inner world operates on a deeper rhythm, so their behaviors often reflect what others can't see. What looks like too much from the outside is often perfectly logical on a soul level. The intensity, the sensitivity, the fixation, these aren't malfunctions. They're mechanisms, tools your spirit uses to help you navigate transitions most people sleepwalk through. The spiritually awake don't follow maps. They follow intuition. And intuition requires something to hold on to, habits, impulses, even obsessions, to guide them through internal shifts. Real spiritual growth isn't gentle, it's disorienting. It strips away old versions of you and pulls you into chapters you aren't fully prepared for. And while that's happening, your soul will reach for whatever stabilizes you. These addictions may look messy, but inside, they're acting like anchors, keeping you steady while something larger rearranges your life from within. These aren't flaws. They're responses. They're your spirit's way of saying, stay grounded, stay awake. Something important is happening. If you're still watching, I'd like to thank you for your attention. If you enjoyed the content and want to see more, please consider clicking the subscribe button. Your support is very appreciated. Feel free to share your experiences or thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, take care and subscribe for more insightful content.